shadows moving underground. On that hot Saturday morning in August 2005, 164 million reals were missing from the vault of the Fortaleza branch of the Banco Central do Brasil. No alarm had gone off. No door had been forced open. There was only a cold, dark tunnel. But how had that tunnel been dug? The city of Fortaleza in northeastern Brazil appeared calm as usual that weekend. The beaches were full of tourists, cafes were open, the streets were lively. No one knew that beneath their feet, deep within layers of earth, the final stages of one of the largest robbery operations in history were unfolding. On Saturday, August 6th, when security guards arrived for a routine check, they froze at the sight before them. Part of the vault was completely empty. The floor had been breached. Below it lay endless darkness. When the police first arrived, they struggled to grasp the scale of what had happened. This was not just a robbery. It was the result of months of planning, engineering expertise, and audacious nerve. The robbery team had dug a tunnel through meters of dense soil, starting from a house they had rented 80 meters away from the bank. But how had no one heard them? The Ghost Company and the rented house. Every great heist begins with a small lie. Toward the end of 2004, a company called Grama Sintética applied to rent a property in a quiet neighborhood within Fortaleza's commercial district. The company's stated business was selling artificial grass. On paper, everything looked normal. Signatures, documents, references. No one could see what was really happening behind that paperwork. The house they rented was a plain 2-story building. Neighbors remembered the moving day. Vans arrived, lots of materials were unloaded. Workers went inside. But as the days passed, a strange silence settled over the house. During the day, there was rarely any movement. At night, there was no sound at all. Or so it seemed. Neighbors occasionally saw the door open and close, sometimes vans coming and going. But no one knew what was happening inside. The artificial grass company's employees bought water from the local grocery store, behaved politely, and gave short answers to questions. "We're very busy. We can't keep up with orders," they said. It never crossed anyone's mind to question what was really happening in the basement of that house. But what were the diggers, working day and night, feeling down there? In that dark tunnel, filled with the smell of earth and dampness. The battle beneath the ground. When the first shovel struck the earth, none of them knew how hard it would be. The tunnel would be 80 meters long and 4 meters deep. The soil layers were hard, damp, and airless. The workers dug in shifts. One dug, another carried the soil, a third handled ventilation. The system was simple, but exhausting. The sound of shovels was swallowed by the earth. With every strike of the pickaxe, hands hardened with calluses. Eyes went for hours without seeing daylight. There was only the dim glow of flashlights. The air grew heavier in their lungs. Breathing became harder, but no one stopped. Because at the other end awaited 164 million reais. That money was big enough to make them forget the pain, the exhaustion, the fear. But were they really doing this just for money? One of the biggest problems during the digging was what to do with the excavated soil. Tons of earth piled up. Dumping it outside would raise suspicion, so they created hidden storage spaces inside the house, behind walls, above ceilings, in basement corners. Soil was hidden everywhere. From the outside, the house looked normal, but inside it had turned into a burial ground of dirt. The smell was masked, traces erased, evidence covered. But who was really running this operation?
The brains behind the operation were professional criminals. The man in charge was in his mid-30s, calm, capable of making careful plans, able to calculate risks and keep his team disciplined. His name meant nothing to the public, but in the criminal underworld, he was well known. He had carried out a few small robberies before, but none on this scale. This time, he was putting everything he had, every bit of experience and courage, on the line. The team consisted of 25 people. Some were construction workers, some electricians, some amateur thieves. They came from different backgrounds, but they shared a single goal: to get rich. It was a disciplined crew that knew its roles, worked methodically, and asked no questions. Each person had a clear task: diggers, carriers, planners, lookouts. No one talked more than necessary, because silence was the key to success. But was there real trust among them? Over months of work, their bonds grew stronger, but so did the tension. Exhaustion turned into irritability, irritability into arguments, arguments into fights. Some wanted to abandon the tunnel, some demanded a bigger cut, others began to fear the police. The leader had to keep all these cracks under control, because one act of betrayal could destroy them all, and betrayal was always waiting at the door. The first cracks. By May 2005, the tunnel was halfway complete, but then an unexpected problem emerged. During the digging, they hit an underground water line. Water began to gush out. The tunnel started to flood. Panic spread. One of the crew shouted, "This place is going to collapse. We have to get out now." But the leader remained calm. "Shut off the water. Exit in a controlled way," he said. The system was fixed. The tunnel was saved. But in that moment, everyone understood the truth. This operation was face to face with death at every second. On another day, one of the lookouts reported that police were patrolling nearby. The team stopped instantly. No one moved in the tunnel. No sound came from the house. They waited for hours. The police eventually left, but that waiting drained morale, because every second, every moment of silence made the fear of being caught grow stronger. Imagine being down there in the darkness, meters of soil above you, strangers beside you, police outside. What would you feel? Still, the team continued. There was no turning back anymore. They had gone too far. They had invested too much effort. And most importantly, the dream of that money kept everyone going. Every night before sleeping, they imagined the vault. They pictured the smell of stacks of cash. They tasted the feeling of freedom. But freedom always comes at a price. And the question was, would they be able to pay it? touching the heart of the bank. In the first week of August 2005, the tunnel finally reached its target. The diggers had arrived beneath the bank's lower layers. Above them were concrete and steel barriers. Now the real challenge began. They had to enter silently, without damaging the bank's structural foundation. One mistake could trigger every alarm system. One sound could mobilize security. It was time for precision. Electric saws, specialized drilling machines, silent cutters, the team was using state-of-the-art equipment. Every cut was calculated. Every movement was measured. Pieces of concrete were removed slowly. Steel bars were cut. Layer by layer they advanced. They were sweating. Their hands were shaking. Their eyes burned from the dust. But they didn't stop. Because they were so close now. The rustle of money echoed in their ears. And finally, on the night of Friday, August 5, the last layer was breached. A hole was opened in the floor of the vault. From the dark tunnel, a passage into the bank was created. Holding their breath, the team entered. Before their eyes were stacks of cash lined up on shelves, millions of reais, bundled and silent, waiting for them. No one spoke in that moment. They just stared, because this was the biggest moment of their lives. But it was also the most dangerous one. The longer they stayed inside, the greater the risk of being caught. Midnight transport. Friday night, 11 p.m. The operation began. The team started moving money out of the vault, using sacks they had prepared in advance. Each sack weighed around 5 million reais. They were heavy, bulky, difficult to carry. But adrenaline made them forget everything. Hands grew tired, but did not stop. Backs ached, but did not stop. Because each sack meant freedom. The sacks were carried through the tunnel and piled into storage spaces inside the house. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Dawn approached. The air grew heavier. Exhaustion seeped into their bones. But the leader kept saying, "Keep going. We're not done yet." And the team continued to work like machines. For 8 straight hours, they carried money without stopping. 3.5 tons of cash. An amount beyond their wildest dreams. At 7 a.m., when the last sack was moved, the team sealed the tunnel. They covered the holes. They wiped away the traces. And quietly, they left the house. They got into vans and drove out of the city. Behind them, they left an empty house and a dark tunnel. Ahead of them lay the story of one of the largest robberies in the world. When would the police realize what had happened? Mourning, discovery, and shock. Saturday morning, August 6th, 9:30 a.m. Security guards at the Banco Central entered the vault for a routine check. At first glance, everything looked normal. But something felt wrong. The air was cold. There was a damp smell. And the floor seemed slightly sunken. They moved closer. They bent down. And they saw it. The floor had been breached. A large, clean hole. Darkness below. When they shined their flashlights, they saw the entrance to a long tunnel. They were stunned. They couldn't understand it. How?
when? Who? Questions filled the air. They immediately alerted their superiors. The police were called. The alarm was raised, and within minutes, police vehicles filled the front of the bank. The initial findings were horrifying. The tunnel was 80 meters long. It had been professionally dug. It had a ventilation system. Electrical wiring had been installed. This was not amateur work. This was an operation planned for months, requiring engineering knowledge and carried out through coordinated teamwork. Police commanders said they had never seen anything like it in their lives, because in Brazil's history, a tunnel robbery on this scale had never happened. But where were the robbers?
The search begins. The Fortaleza police moved immediately. They followed the tunnel to its other end. 80 meters away, they found the rented house. They broke down the door and went inside. What they saw shocked them once again. The house was completely empty, but there were traces of soil on the walls. The basement was filled with sacks. Remnants of equipment were everywhere, and most importantly, there were fake documents belonging to the artificial grass company, Grama Synthetica. The person listed as the company's owner turned out to be fictitious. The address was a fake office. The references were fabricated. Everything was part of a flawless plan. Police examined the rental contract. The signatures were analyzed by experts, but they found no usable leads. The robbers had thought of every detail. They had hidden their identities and erased their tracks. They were like ghosts. The press caught wind of the story. Within hours, the news spread across all of Brazil. Television stations went live. Newspapers ran banner headlines. The biggest robbery in history. An 80-meter tunnel. 164 million reais stolen. The public was in shock. Some couldn't believe it. Some laughed in disbelief. Others were impressed, because this was something that happened in movies, not real life. But it was real, and the robbers had vanished. The mastermind behind the robbery left the country immediately after the operation. Using fake passports, they crossed into Argentina. From there to Paraguay, then Bolivia, disappearing into the depths of Latin America. They were carrying millions of dollars with them. But every escape eventually comes to an end, because the world is smaller than we think. Interpol stepped in. An international manhunt was launched. Photographs were distributed. Notices were issued. Rewards were offered. Police forces in multiple countries were put on alert. Slowly, the net began to tighten. In December 2005, information surfaced that the leader was in Paraguay. Police moved in. The house was raided, but the leader wasn't there. He had escaped just one day earlier, as if he was always one step ahead. But moving that much money was difficult. Large sums drew attention. The leader began splitting the cash and hiding it in different locations. Yet every hiding place meant risk. Every person he trusted carried the potential to betray him. Over time, the lure of money weakened bonds of loyalty. One of his associates stole a portion and disappeared. Another leaked information to the police. The leader began to grow alone. And loneliness is a criminal's greatest enemy. Arrested and on the run. Between 2006 and 2008, a total of 17 members of the crew were captured. Some were arrested in their homes, some were stopped while trying to flee, and some turned themselves in. Trials began. Sentences were handed down. Some received 15 years, some 20 years, and some life sentences.
But the leader and a few key figures were still missing. And as long as they remained at large, the story was not over. The leader stayed free until 2010, but freedom became a prison for him. He was constantly on the run, changing names, undergoing facial surgery, trying to erase his fingerprints, living a paranoid life. Every knock on the door felt like the police. Every stranger seemed like an informant. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't trust anyone. And little by little, he began making more mistakes. In 2010, Argentine police identified a suspicious individual in a luxury apartment in Buenos Aires. Surveillance was set up. The suspect was followed, and one night, a raid was carried out. The door was broken down, officers entered, and there he was, the leader. After years, he was finally caught. But he had only $2 million left with him. The remaining millions? Gone. Maybe buried somewhere, maybe burned, maybe stolen by others. No one would ever know for sure.
Questioning security systems. After the robbery, all banks in Brazil reviewed their security systems. The Banco Central installed sensors in its foundations. Underground vibration detectors were put in place. Alarm systems were reinforced. But these measures came too late, because the horse had already left the barn. Experts prepared reports. How did no one notice for months? Why wasn't the underground excavation detected? Why didn't security guards grow suspicious? The questions remained unanswered, because the truth was this: the system was not prepared for this kind of creative crime. Everyone expected an armed robbery. No one expected a tunnel coming from underground. This situation sparked debate, not only in Brazil, but worldwide. At international security conferences, the Fortaleza robbery was studied as a case example. Tunnel techniques were analyzed, prevention strategies were developed, and one reality became clear: criminals were always one step ahead, because they had nothing to lose. But banks had everything to lose. And this asymmetry was the greatest weakness of security systems.
The missing money and complications. Nearly 150 million of the 164 million reais was never recovered. Where did that money go? Some of it was burned, some buried, some transferred to offshore accounts. But the definitive answer is still unknown. Several theories exist. The first theory suggests that the leader distributed part of the money to family members and buried the rest in secret locations. The second theory points to betrayal within the crew, with some members making off with large shares. The third theory claims that part of the money was transferred to organized crime groups. Each theory may contain some truth, because an operation of this magnitude cannot be controlled by a single hand. The flow of money becomes complex, it is difficult to trace, and over time, the tracks disappear. Police continued searching for years. Some hidden caches were uncovered, some accounts were frozen, but the majority of the money remains missing, and may remain missing forever. This situation created many complications. The Banco Central turned to its insurance company, but the insurer refused to pay, citing security vulnerabilities. The bank recorded the loss. Customers grew uneasy. Trust was shaken. And the economic impact was not limited to those 164 million reais alone. The psychological impact was far greater, because the public was forced to confront a disturbing truth. Even a bank considered the safest place could be robbed. And that realization was a trauma.
Legal proceedings and sentences. Courtrooms were filled for years with cases related to the Fortaleza robbery. Lawyers, prosecutors, jurors, witnesses, everyone wanted to be part of this historic event. Hearings were sometimes extremely tense. Some defendants broke down in tears and begged for forgiveness. Others were defiant. Some shouted, "I owe you nothing," tension in the courtroom was at its peak. Most of the 17 people who were caught received heavy sentences. Some were given 15 years, others 25 years. The leader received a 40-year sentence. But the sentences existed mostly on paper. Brazil's prison system was overcrowded, conditions were poor, and some inmates were released early for good behavior. By 2015, several crew members had regained their freedom. When they walked out, the media was waiting for them. How do you feel? Do you regret it? Where did you hide the money? Some stayed silent, others spoke. "The biggest mistake of my life," one said. "I wouldn't do it again, but back then, there was no other choice." Another said, "I don't regret it. We fought the system. We lost, but we lost with honor." Two different perspectives, two different stories. But one thing was shared. None of them were the same people anymore. Prison had changed them. Yet the robbery still lived inside them. In memory, in fear, in regret.
The heist that became a legend. As time passed, the Fortaleza robbery turned into a legend. People began to exaggerate the story. They stole 200 million. The tunnel was 100 meters long. None of them were ever caught. Facts blended with myths, but that no longer mattered because people loved the scale of the story, and with every retelling, it grew even larger. Street musicians wrote songs about the robbery. One song, "The Ghosts of Fortaleza," became popular. The lyrics portrayed the robbers as heroes. They were Robin Hood figures. They took from the rich and gave to the poor. Of course, that wasn't true, but that's how myths work. Facts are stretched, heroes are created, villains are forgotten. And in the end, what emerges is a legend. The Fortaleza robbery became exactly that. Filmmakers wanted to bring the story to the screen. In 2019, a documentary was released. In 2021, a feature film followed. Both attracted huge attention. People wanted to imagine that tunnel, see that vault, get to know that crew. Because this was not just a crime story. It was a mirror reflecting the darkest and bravest sides of human nature. And everyone wanted to look into that mirror. One heist, 1,000 lessons. The Banco Central de Fortaleza robbery is an event etched into world history. 164 million reais, an 80-meter tunnel, months of preparation, disciplined teamwork. Each was a piece of an extraordinary operation. But the outcome? 17 people were caught. Millions vanished. Lives were ruined. Families were torn apart. And all that remained was a story. So what does this story teach us? Courage? Planning? Or human greed? Perhaps all of them. But above all, it teaches this. Every grand plan demands a price, and sometimes that price is unbearably high. The crew members lost their freedom. Some lost their lives. Others lost their sanity. The money came and went. The pain remained. Imagine standing right now where that tunnel once was. Dark, cold, damp. Tons of earth above you. Beneath your feet, the path where millions once passed. Do the sounds still echo? Do the spirits still wander? Who knows? But one thing is certain. That tunnel was not just a hole in the ground. It was a place where humanity's darkest and brightest sides met.